Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for those kind words. I now call on Dr Conor Brady to address you.
Actually didn't realise it, but when he asked me to say the few words here this evening, he got me on one of the few days in the year that I get this suit out and put it on. We had graduations up in DkIT today, so it was a very pleasant day, a very happy day, and this is the crowning glory of the day now for me anyhow, to appear here and to have you guys as a captive audience. I was delighted to be asked, and thank you, Anthony, for asking me. Of course, once Anthony asked, I couldn't say no, of course. It was so fantastic. I've been following Anthony's work for so long. But a few minutes afterwards, reality kind of bit, and I realised I had to say something interesting and intelligent, so I had to sit down, take a bit of time, and figure out exactly what to say. Now, we are the day before Halloween at the moment, so I thought I might tell you all about the Dronehenge curse. Not a lot of people know about that. It's known in archaeological circles, I think, and Matt and Geraldine have heard of it all right. It's not the kind of curse you would think about at the time of Halloween. It's not an evil curse. It's an annoying curse, mind you. Over the years, a lot of archaeologists have found that if you go digging in the Dronehenge area, expecting or planning to find something in particular, that is exactly what you will not find. So there are examples of this. I can quote chapter and verse here. George Ogan, Professor George Ogan, who I'm sure you have all heard of before, he spent the greater part of his career excavating the site of Nowth. Excavations began there in 1962. It continued for over 50 years. I don't know if they've even finished yet, but they're possibly still going on. Certainly the publications are still coming out. Almost everything you could find was found at that site. It is a fantastic site. Many of you have visited, I'm sure. And a lot of people commented that exactly that all of Irish prehistory and history is represented in the remains on the site there now. And that is almost true. The earliest, there's the Mesolithic period. There is activity there. Not a lot, but it's there. There's the Neolithic, of course. There's a lot of Neolithic activity. There's an early Neolithic settlement before the passage tombs. There's the fantastic passage tomb complex itself with the amazing collection of art carved onto the stones, unrivaled anywhere else in the world. There's extensive post-passage tomb activity around the time of the late Neolithic as well. And of course, after the Neolithic, we have Iron Age activity, and that included the fortification of the main mound, the early medieval activity. There was extensive settlement around the base of the mound. There was construction of suzerains in and around the mound as well. There was high medieval settlement as well when the mound was converted into a motte. And even after that, there was activity, post-medieval settlement and farming activity. Now, of course, that is extremely impressive. There's almost no other site in the country that has that extent of remains. Now, you're wondering about the curse, where does that come in? George Ogan, his particular area of expertise is not passage tombs. He is a recognised international expert on the Bronze Age. And the one phase of activity in the entire complex now that isn't represented is the Bronze Age. Now, if that's not a curse, I don't know what is. The poor man spent his entire career on the site and virtually found no Bronze Age remains whatsoever. Just down the road, Newgrange, M.J. O'Kelly, he embarked on the excavation of Newgrange on behalf of Lord Fáilte, and he famously stated that the excavation there should only take a few weeks. He completely underestimated the site. He started the dig in the same year that Nowth started, and he didn't get off the site until 1975, 14 odd years later. Again, I think that is related to the curse as well. Matt and Geraldine are here this evening. I hope you don't mind me saying this to you. As recently as 2018, Matt and Geraldine, you may know, they were, I think they were victims of the curse as well. They undertook excavation at a series of features that were identified by geophysical survey. That survey was commissioned by, I think, National Monuments and the OPW down at Newgrange Farm. and they were looking for a suitable area to put in a percolation area to upgrade the visitor toilet facilities at the monument at Newgrange. And of course, not surprisingly, they found stuff. A whole series of features was mapped out, and that took on a distinctive rectilinear sort of a shape. And so Matt and Geraldine, based on their knowledge of medieval abbeys, including their work at Bective and Mellifont and various other places, now Beaubec, of course, since last summer, they strongly suspected that they were excavating a medieval barn, one of the famous granges or grain stores that was associated with the very extensive holdings of Mellifont Abbey. Now, the dig started, and they had great weather for it. This was the summer of 2018. And that particular picture that they had unfortunately started very quickly to fade. And when a late Neolithic radiocarbon date was obtained from material that came out of one of the features, it was very clear that the site in fact is a late Neolithic cursus monument. That's a ceremonial processional way from around the same time as Dronehenge and the other ceremonial monuments as well. So I think it is definitely another clear example of the curse. Now I myself am the victim of the curse as well. I spent about 4 or 5 years tramping around the fields in the Brunelone area, the ploughed fields particularly, collecting flint and stone tools. People thought I was cracked for doing that to start with, but that's another story. What I was trying to find was the places where people lived in the landscape. So I was using the stone tools left in the soil as an indicator of that. So I found buckets and buckets and buckets of stone tools, not surprisingly, and a number of areas where concentrations for activity seem to have taken place over a prolonged period. So I followed up by carrying out a geophysical survey on a selection of the sites to see what survived intact underneath the soil. And unfortunately, site after site, very little was found to remain. It seemed that the ploughing since prehistoric times was quite thorough. There were little wisps of things here and there, but nothing that you'd call a house, nothing that you'd call an enclosure, nothing clear that you could put up in the picture and say that is where the people were living. So again, I put that down to the curse, but that's not the worst of it. The last site that we did a geophysical survey on, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. This was it. I had an absolute eureka moment, possibly like what Anthony experienced that evening in 2018. We did geophysics in the spinal site, and I detected a huge D-shaped enclosure right up against the bank of the river, where the famous bend of the Boyne begins, below the mound at Naud, just where the river turns sharply southwards. So this is the perfect location. If you wanted to pick a site for a house and you were allowed to build it, that is the place. It's absolutely idyllic. You know it, I think some of you have been to the site. So in my mind, this was it. This was one of the centres where the Neolithic builders of Newgrange and Dundalk, this was one of the places where they definitely lived, no question about it. So I went to the next stage, I applied for grants to move to excavation, and a 4-week season was planned, all the insurance was done, the equipment, all the permissions were put in place, and we started work. And we had a great time, mixed weather mind you, but we did very well in spite of that. On the Wednesday of the last week, with 2.5 days to go, the sky came crashing down on my head. An artefact about the size of your thumbnail came up, and it dates to probably the 8th century, 9th century, give or take. And I found it beneath the bank of my so-called Neolithic enclosure. Now, an archaeologist gets that immediately, but that little find, that size, proved beyond any doubt whatsoever that my Neolithic enclosure actually dated to the early medieval period. Now, I was devastated. I'm interested in the Neolithic. I wanted to find the Neolithic. I wanted to link it all into the tombs, but no, that wasn't going to happen. Now, the enclosure that we did find is important. It does shed new light on early medieval activity in Drogheda, but the point is that's not what I wanted to find. So, very definitely another clear example of the curse. Now, I certainly believe that the curse is real, And I think there are probably other examples out there as well. But it's very useful. It serves to remind us archaeologists that we need to be extremely careful. We need to be extremely humble when we approach the Brunebonia landscape. It doesn't yield up its secrets easily. Now, it's not all negative. We're here to launch Anthony's book, and it's about one of the most recent, very dramatic discoveries. There has been a long history of discovery in Brunebonia over the years. Now, I think the spirits or the ancestors who watch over the place, they do seem to decide to reward researchers from time to time on their own terms. Some of the discoveries, I think, have been almost on the scale of Howard Carter's location and opening of Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of Kings back in 1922. That, for me, was the find of the 20th century. Above all, it really stands out. Internationally, it had a massive impact. We're still talking about it today. Really caught the public imagination. But in Brunebonia, again, George Owen, while he was working it now, he discovered not just one, but two passages and chambers in the main mound on the site. The Western tomb was discovered in July 1967, and George has a fantastic account of the initial discovery and the very first tentative exploration on hands and knees in almost pitch darkness as they crawled into the mound and discovered what was there. Like, imagine the sheer wonder that these first visitors experienced as their torches picked out the lavishly decorated orthostats along the passageway. They were potentially the first people to enter that sacred space in almost 5,000 years. A year later, the Eastern tomb, that was discovered in similar circumstances in August 1968. Again, George's account provides a visceral sense of the sheer excitement that he must have experienced as the discoverers explored the absolutely fabulous Corbett chamber again for the first time. Equally impressive is O'Kelly's account, M.J. O'Kelly's account of the discovery of the alignment at Newgrange to the winter solstice sunrise. Now, he visited the site over a number of years on the hunch that there may be some kind of an alignment. But it wasn't until 1967 that the sun actually shone for them. And he gives the following account. He said, "I was literally astounded. The light began as a thin pencil and widened out to a band of about 6 inches. There was so much light reflected from the floor that I could walk around inside without a lamp and avoid bumping off the stones. It was so bright I could see the roof 20 feet above me. I expected to hear a voice, or perhaps feel a cold hand resting on my shoulder, but there was silence. And then, after a few minutes, the shaft of light narrowed as the sun appeared to pass westwards across the slit, and total darkness came once more." Now, Anthony has made a discovery that I think deserves to sit alongside these other discoveries as well, in terms of the sense of the awe and the wonder that the find has created. It's definitely up there with the best of the rest of them. The spirits, the ancestors that look over the Brunebonia landscape, they decided that the time was right, and a very specific and unusual set of conditions developed over the summer of 2018. We had very dry weather conditions. We had a cereal crop growing in the field on the gravel terrace below Newgrange, and that caused the appearance in glorious detail of the Dronehenge, the most spectacular and imagination-grabbing discovery of this millennium so far, not just in Brunebonia, but in Ireland and internationally possibly as well. So I think the spirits, or the ancestors, the ever-living ones, is that? Yeah. They're dwelling as they do in the monuments scattered around Brunebonia. They chose a very particular individual as well to be the first to witness the magical reappearance of this feature. So in their wisdom, they did not choose to reveal this secret to a member of the establishment. So no official from National Monuments was there, or the OPW, or even an archaeologist, which I think is right and proper. Instead, they chose Anthony and his collaborator, Ken Williams. And of course, Anthony is well known to us here. He's been working away in the area over long years, bringing his own unique style of inquiry to bear on the monuments and the myths and the legend of the area. He has been working away systematically for steadfastly, with passion and enthusiasm, without the backing of any major research institution or funder, exploring all of the possible meanings of the monuments, and more importantly, imagining the lives of the previous generations of the community living in the area. Ken, who's also instrumental in the story of the discovery of Dronehenge, he also has been working for years all over Ireland, particularly through the Shadows and Stones website, taking amazing photographs of a variety of mainly prehistoric sites right the way across the country. So these spirits chose their messengers very, very well, and the word, as we've heard, it spread far and wide. Coverage of the discovery flew within hours to all corners of the globe. And we heard already about the documentary crews rolling up to the area, no less than National Geographic. It doesn't get better than that. They picked up on the story, they visited the area as well. And of course, if that was not impressive enough, Tony Robinson, Sir Tony Robinson, is the former man in the street presenter of the famous Time Team programme. He included Anthony and the discovery in a documentary series he was presenting about discoveries in and around Britain. Now, I think a special dispensation was granted to include an Irish site, and to their credit, they carefully avoided use of the term British Isles as well, so credit is due. So the book, finally the book. It is the story of that discovery. It conveys some of the sense of the wonder and the excitement created, as well as documenting how the story spread so far around the world. Now, there's also some attempt to explain the monument based on the limited enough information that is known already about these sites. There's a series of tentative reconstructions of the monuments as well. They were specially produced for the book, and they help us to imagine what the original appearance of the site itself might have been. Now, I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I don't mean this in a patronising way at all. A non-archaeologist has made this discovery. It's a fantastic lesson for the professional archaeologists in the room here, I think. Although we archaeologists do have a certain set of skills and expertise and knowledge, we do not have a monopoly over the remains themselves. That is beyond question. It's fantastic also that there was a local person as well. Brunagonia, it's only up the road from us. Although it's a World Heritage Site, and as such it belongs to the entire world, it belongs first and foremost to the community who live in the immediate area, in the shadow of the monuments themselves, and also to the wider community of the Boyne Valley. People of Drogheda, people of Slane, people Finally, it's fantastic that somebody who has dedicated himself so passionately to the story of Brunagonia for so long was the one to make this dramatic and exciting discovery. I'm very interested to see what happens next. I certainly hope that there will be opportunities to research the site further and learn about the thoughts and intentions of the people who built and used it all those millennia ago. Now, in conclusion, I can't congratulate Anthony enough on not only the discovery but also on getting the story out there in this fantastic book. And I urge you all to buy this book. Many copies, each one of you. Am I allowed to say it would make an ideal Christmas present? We haven't had Halloween yet, maybe I'll be shocked if there's another curse that will get me. But it is remarkably good value, it is fantastic. So without further ado, can I declare this book well and truly launched?